Welcome to my channel, Critical Storytelling. I am Ella, and this is my creative writing channel where I use critical analysis to help you tell your story. And in the last episodes, we've been looking at the literary device, the framed narrative, and we've been applying it to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The framed narrative provides structure. It's like an introduction that the storyteller can use. It provides distance also, so that when the storyteller begins, you realize that you're not actually there to listen to, for instance, in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the wedding guest. You're not there to hear about the wedding. Even though that's where the story begins, you're there to hear about their adventure on the sea. So the distance provides intrigue, and Coleridge goes back and forth between the scene where the mariner is engaging with the wedding guest who just wants to get on with his evening, but he can't help but listen to the story, and then also the reader going into the story on the sea. And that is where we are right now, but I wanted to introduce a second literary device at this point in the poem. We've read parts 1 and 2, and Coleridge is actually using another literary device called the Dramatic Monologue. This is a way to develop character in the poem, and it also provides plot progression, but it really wasn't made famous until Robert Browning came along. And Coleridge lived from the years of 1772 to 1834, and if you remember in a previous video, I talked about how Coleridge was a pre-romantic, and so the Industrial Revolution had just started, but by the time Robert Browning had come along, he lived from 1812 to 1889, people really did see more and more the importance of returning to nature. And so there are elements of the dramatic monologue that are undeniable in Rime of the Ancient Mariner, although it wouldn't technically be classified as that, because as a literary device, the dramatic monologue has certain criteria. It can be categorized as like a precursor, like I said. It's Coleridge is a pre-romantic, so this is the beginnings of what we would see perfected, like 100 years later. So the dramatic monologue is evident when the mariner it's almost like he's on stage when he's telling the story, and you're like outside the frame hearing him talk to the wedding guest. He uses imagery in his conversation, so it's there's lots of details that you can see or feel, and it provides realism. And there's also a sense of like urgency, which we have talked about before with the frame narrative, how Coleridge was building suspense by going back and forth between being with the wedding guest and being on the ship, until part 2, he's completely on the sea. And so we will talk more about elements of the dramatic monologue in part 2 of the poem on the next video. But Coleridge uses these two simple techniques to create one of the most famous stories ever, the dramatic monologue and the framed narrative. So I did want to look at the text for a minute, though. Let's examine that. So, whereas in the framed narrative, we look at the beginning, like the first glimpse of the frame is with the words, "There was a ship." So, quoth he. So, that's also foreshadowing the dramatic monologue. That, because the reader sees how there was, while the wedding guest was taken aback because he wanted to get to the party, he was also, like, not long after that, just decided to sit down and hear the story of the ship. And then further down, as the mariner begins the actual story, the ship was cheered, the harbor cleared, merrily did we drop. At this point, you can kind of see someone as if they are on stage, and, it's a very personal story to him, so he is telling it in a way that is not maybe so dramatic, like it's not put on, but dramatic as in it's moving, because you can tell that he's been somewhere, he's seen something, till over the mast at noon. So that whole, like, second glimpse at the frame is a bit of a dramatic monologue, like a tiny bit. And then further down, like, he has in all caps the words "storm blast." So that, again, is very dramatic, that when he is saying these words after the bride goes by, and the wedding guest holds his breast, when the mariner returns to his part of the frame where we're entering the story, and he's using the dramatic monologue, the storm blast, all caps, is very dramatic. And then also I wanted to look at the language, like words like "chased us," "sloping masts." So normally, hopefully, when you're on a ship, you're even keel, and then the whole thing, like, you can feel this language. Loud roared, mist and snow, wondrous cold, green as emerald, a dismal sheen. It cracked and growled and roared and howled. All of these words demonstrate language that would be very effective if you were to use a dramatic monologue to tell your story. Through the fog, at length did cross an albatross, through the fog it came, glimmered the white moonshine. So these are all very, very visual imagery, and all of that is very effective to tell your story. And I hope that you use a dramatic monologue the next time that you sit down to write something, creative writing. So next time we're going to return to reading some of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but we will look at examining part 2. Maybe there's some language there that would, like, fit into the dramatic monologue. None of that is in quotations, so you are fully into the story at that point. We don't take a look back at the frame in part 2, but we will examine how it creates a hybrid version of a framed narrative and a dramatic monologue. Thank you.